Attachment theory and the tarot. One way of delving into our relationship world is using tarot in conjunction with attachment theory. Our relationships involve our connections with everyone. It's about our responses, tendencies, and patterns, and where they come from. Attachment theory is a very deep and complex subject, and there is so much information out there. In relation to tarot, we will be sticking to the 4 primary styles. These are dismissive avoidant, fearful avoidant, a secure attachment, and an anxious or preoccupied attachment style. As you can see from this diagram, this can be a spectrum moving from high to low on the avoidance from top to bottom, and from low to high on the anxiety from left to right. We can move between all of these different styles, but we usually have one particular tendency. We can also display different characteristics depending on the connection as we respond to the other person in the connection. So let's start with the dismissive avoidant attachment style and the Suit of Swords. So this is someone who's usually really intellectual, lives quite a lot of their life in their head, and spends a lot of their time guarded. It's not that they don't want to belong, and it's not that they don't want to have secure relationships. It's just that they've been hurt in the past. They're often highly sensitive and very empathetic, but they don't show that side to very many people. They won't express their emotions, especially in the heightened state. They self-soothe by being alone and shutting the world out, because that is often what they had to do for survival in early life. If you look through the images of the Suit of Swords, you can see the characteristics of the dismissive avoidant. The swords represent the mind and represent the head and the headspace or thoughts. This can be a good thing or a bad thing. Sometimes we can use these swords for victory. This is the kind of person you would want in a situation where you were having major surgery. These are analytical, very clear-minded, need to know the details of everything, dependable people generally. They just find it quite difficult to connect on emotional levels. So just a run through of each of the cards, starting with the Ace of Swords. As you can see here, the hand is holding and is ready to just cut. Very decisive action, sharp truth, and just ready to remove very swiftly anything that they are ready to get rid of in a healthy or unhealthy scenario. Then we have this toil and this over-analyzing and decision-making, this thinking, what would happen if I did this? What would happen if I did that? And being almost paralyzed in that. Then we have this deep embedded heartache with the Three of Swords, where those hurts are so hidden and affect these people on such a deep level, but no one would ever know. Then we have the Four of Swords, which is a picture of retreat away from other people. Sometimes these people like to connect with movies or books or the internet world and connect that way rather than with people, as it's just more reliable to them. They can cut off their nose to spite their face. Even though they feel an incredible loss, they will still push people away. They are very helpful and will practically move people from one place to another. They can weigh things up analytically, which is so helpful for holding space for others. But they will hide their feelings and they will try to sneak off away from their feelings and away from other people's feelings so that they don't have to feel. Often they can get caught up in their thoughts and feel paralyzed in them, feel trapped and stuck. But it's often all in their head. As Missy Higgins said, I was comfortable and warm inside my shell and couldn't see this place could soon become my hell. They can overthink and overanalyze, and it can affect their sleep. And they can go over and over and over and over situations. Often they will want to talk things out and repeat over and over and over again the same things to try and make sense of things. And then they can feel so defeated by other humans that they just find it's so difficult to trust because humans have hurt them in the past and they can just feel all that at once and need to just retreat away. They can often be in fight or flight mode the majority of the time, guarded and ready, and they can move into actual fight mode and cut people down very, very swiftly. They know exactly what to say to cut with their words. They can be very hurtful when triggered. They can sometimes speak first and think later. But they are so good in an analytical situation, so wise and so able for impartial, logical advice. So now we move on to the fearful avoidant and the suit of wands. This attachment style can also be known as disorganized attachment. This differs from the dismissive avoidant because rather than dismiss and block out connection, the fearful avoidant will seek out and desire intimate connections. But when it comes to that point of vulnerability, they often need to deactivate because they become so anxious and fearful and distrustful. The fearful avoidant can have a very high function in life and thrive in one or two areas of their life or a few particular relationships, but it can very quickly flop into a detriment of addiction or obsession. They can be triggered by things like if the other person in the intimate connection changes and they perceive it as them pulling back or pulling away, it can knock them into one of two states. They will either go into the anxious state of trying to agonize and sort the relationship out, or they can need to deactivate that connection because they feel unsafe. And they often flip flop between the two and find it difficult to make the decision and enter into this push pull toxic scenario. That's very, very difficult. So let's go through each card and look at the images. The Ace of Wands, lots of energy and passion in this attachment style. but yet always looking for the next thing. It's very difficult for them to stay in the moment. They're always looking out for the next thing. They're always getting caught up in between different situations and feeling like they need to make a choice. Now, this is, a spectrum. Not everyone will go through this. Stability is something they do really crave and they do really enjoy, but it's a really hard thing for them to enjoy. It can be short-lived because it feels too good to be true, and the inner and outer conflict arises. Sometimes it can be worked out on an inner level, and sometimes it can be talked out depending on the connection, but often it leads to some kind of victorious change, which can be leaving or staying. But even in that victory, there's always that need to battle the demons all the time, the thoughts and the anxiety of this connection. And things can move so quickly, so quickly with this attachment style and change day to day. It's really, really difficult to keep up sometimes. And they can just feel wounded, and things just seem so difficult, and they want to deactivate and retreat, but they also want to stay and keep fighting. It just can feel like such a burden. All intimate connections can just feel like such a burden, and it can just be so difficult for these people if not supported well. But in a positive state, there is so much that this energy can do. They can be so charismatic and so quick and so fine-tuned in whatever it is they're trying to do. They can rush in and quickly bring so much passion and life into any situation. But it's a kind of catch them while you can situation, because it's very short term often, unless you can really get in there and gain the trust and offer the stability that they really need. And now moving on to anxious attachment and the Suit of Cups. With this attachment style, people can get caught up in their relationships so fully that they lose their sense of self. They can become almost addicted to other people. They can have a low self-esteem when really out of balance. They can seek validation from others. They desire for intimacy all the time. They don't really like being on their own. They're always looking for approval and just really needy. They can suffer terribly with rejection and criticism and abandonment. And they can become really upset when receiving any kind of disapproval. They can also turn into like a lot of jealousy and frustration when the partner is unavailable. So this can be very difficult if paired with an avoidant, because obviously they want opposite things. An anxious attachment and an avoidant attachment can trigger each other immensely if communication and acknowledgement isn't brought into the connection where everyone's needs are met. They can be overflowing with desire for intimate connection, completely caught up in the other person, fall in love very quickly and become completely preoccupied with a particular relationship. They have a great need to be around other people and in connection. They will often try to continue to offer love, no matter how disinterested or unavailable the other person might be. They can get really caught up in their feelings of rejection and abandonment when their needs aren't met. They can spend a lot of time reminiscing and daydreaming and becoming completely preoccupied with various relationships. They can completely lose a sense of self and become enmeshed with others. They'll sometimes push people away with their insecure behaviors, which then just deepens the whole experience for them. Feeling even more lonely with an even deeper wound than before, oftentimes. They dream so much of this happy ever after that they will accept a lot of pain and sometimes abuse in an attempt to get it. They can be so charming and endearing as they aim to please. They really want to please. And their feelings of unworthiness mean that they can be very openly romantic and loving. They do worry about others a lot and get over concerned with what's going on with other people in their lives more so than their own. They can often handle other people's emotions really well. And now we move on to a secure attachment style and the suit of Pentacles. With a secure attachment style, the general difference between the security and the other attachment styles is the more balanced and equal temperament. They give and receive quite equally. They're invested in themselves and others quite equally. All the areas of their life tend to be a lot more balanced. They are emotionally available, but they can also have their needs shared and met. They know when to leave a situation and when to stay, and their reaction won't be as intense as some of the other attachment styles. They're generally just more even keeled. They know their worth, they treasure and value others, and expect to be treasured and valued in return. They tend to have more balance within relationships and within all the different areas of their life. They're responsive and present in relationships, knowing there needs to be give and take. They're generally able to share openly without oversharing. They tend not to take rejection personally and are more likely to think someone is busy or has their own issues than assume any pullback has anything to do with them. They are less likely to settle for breadcrumbs and they can hold understanding and space when there are genuine reasons for someone not being able to be present for them. They will think about their investments emotionally, spiritually, physically, and financially, and they're less likely then to be shocked if things don't work out. Work through and learn from any difficulties. They are self-sufficient and comfortable with themselves, yet open to connection with the right people. They tend to attract healthy, long-term committed connections and move away from toxic ones more quickly. They tend to look at things very carefully before reacting. They're slow, steady, reliable, and secure. They're nurturing and present and can respond to the needs of those they love and express their own needs too. They're not shaken up by disturbances as they have security and support.